What was on your plate the last time you ate? Do you remember if maybe the food was filled to the rim with maybe more meat or less vegetables than what you would normally eat? Or what about your dessert? Maybe a little bit more than what you were hoping to eat? How you eat and what you eat can really impact the length of time you live, but also how you look and feel. And you may already know this, but what may be a surprise is the science that actually supports the fact versus the fiction. One of the goals in this series is to help separate fact from fiction, science from anecdote. Maybe you're already trying to eat healthful, but you find yourself that the foods don't taste that great or the meals are difficult to prepare. Well, you're not alone, and that happens to be another goal of this series, is to really show you how easy these meals are prepared and how enjoyable they can be. Chef Bill, what are we preparing today?
Well, here's what I've got planned today. Let's imagine for a second that you woke up and decided, today I'm going to eat healthy. And so you head into the kitchen, and I lined up here 3 breakfasts that represent a strategy for making incremental changes to your diet from good to better to best. So let's take a look. You decide you're going to have oatmeal for breakfast, a good whole grain. This is an instant oatmeal. It's ground and rolled very, very fine, so it hits your system very, very quickly. You cook it by boiling some water and just pouring it over the top. 20 seconds later, it's done. And you say, yeah, as much as I like the idea of oats, I think I'd be happier if I poured some heavy cream after having put on a pat of butter. And then when you taste it, it's not quite sweet enough, so you reach for the white sugar. You're on the right track, but we can do better, I think. And so come over here to the middle, and I have now rolled oats instead of instant oats. They take a little bit longer to cook, but certainly no more than about 10 or 15 minutes. And we're going to see if we can't clean this up a little bit. Instead of heavy cream, I'm going to use warm milk. Instead of white sugar, I'm going to put a little bit of honey, but not before I sweeten it with some fresh fruit. So I've got some peaches and some plums. Those go on, and if I still feel like I need sweetness, then I'll add some honey. And over here, I've got something pretty close to a whole grain. This is steel-cut oats, so whole oats that have been cut. Now, admittedly, they take a little bit longer to cook. These will take somewhere between 35 and 45 minutes to cook. But if you put them on to soak the night before, they'll cook in about 5 minutes in the morning. So we've got the steel-cut oats done. I'm going to add a dairy product, but this time I'm going to use yogurt. I'll put some yogurt on there. I'm also going to add just a little bit of flaxseed that has great fats in there. They've been toasted so they have a wonderful nutty flavor, and I mixed that flax with a little bit of cinnamon to add sweetness to the preparation. So it'll come across as a little bit sweet on your palate, but what's really going to make it delicious and really going to make it sweet is this beautiful selection of berries here. I've got blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, and I don't think I'll need honey at all. If I do, maybe just a little bit of a drizzle. So, good, better, best. Incremental changes to your diet. Next, we're going to take a look at what lunch might look like. To keep us on track with our commitment to be healthy, I've brought in 3 salads for lunch. Let's take a look. Here is one salad. It's a chef salad, and you can see it has iceberg lettuce, sort of the white bread of lettuces. But more than that, it is covered with luncheon meat and cheese and bacon. Now, as delicious as it may look, we're not done yet because we've asked for the dressing on the side. They brought it to us in a little squeezy bottle, and so let's go ahead and put some ranch dressing on there. And if that's not enough, we've always got a little bit more to fall back on. This is our good. You know, our intentions were right. We were going to have a salad for lunch, but each time you add ingredients, ask yourself if you are getting the maximum benefits and the least downside. So lettuce, great. Hard-boiled eggs, I like the idea of that. But when we get into luncheon meats and cheeses and salamis and creamy dressing, then it becomes a little bit more of a challenge. So if this is good, Here's what I think better might represent. I've got a Caesar salad here. You can see a darker, leafier green that likely has more nutrition. And I say that not as a scientist, but simply because of the color of those greens. It's a Caesar salad. Caesar salad has cheese on it. A little bit of cheese, especially a full-flavored cheese like Parmesan, can be leveraged to bring a lot of nutrient-dense food like lettuce to you in a tasty way. The dressing, as you can see, is a little bit creamy, but I do have some lean protein. I added some grilled chicken. The croutons are nothing more than white bread. So ask yourself if you can do better. I'm going to drizzle on a little bit of dressing here. I think this is a step in the right direction, however. Now, the last salad I have, maybe you recognize it. This is a niçoise salad. In the south of France, this salad is really an expression of what's best and brightest in the produce market. And then they bring tuna, a very popular seafood in that part of the world, and round it out with tuna. We've seared the tuna here. Traditionally, they would use canned tuna, and usually it's canned in olive oil. But let's see what we've got. The first thing I would do is look for anything that's actually bad for you. And it's pretty difficult to find anything. We've got green beans. We've got potatoes that have been roasted. We've got beautiful hard-boiled eggs, olives, tomatoes, anchovies, a nice protein like tuna, and then lettuces. This I think of as our best option. So good salad, better Caesar salad, and then finally best the niçoise salad. And while I like the idea of dressing on the side, if having the dressing on the side means you're going to use too much of it, then I would say have them dress it in the kitchen and let them do the work for you. Okay, there you have it. Good, better, best. Making incremental changes to your food so they become progressively better for you.
At the CIA, I've had the amazing opportunity to work with some of the most talented chefs in the world, like Chef Bill Brewa. And as a result, my own nutrition philosophy has changed for the better. I hope yours will too. Rather than looking at food and eating as a diet, I like to think of it more as a lifestyle, where meals are a celebration, and I can encourage my own family to indulge in healthy and delicious foods. So words like healthy, indulgence, and celebration typically don't go together, but good food that is prepared well is actually a treat to the palate. So this is why we're really focusing so much on flavor and appreciating the healthy inspirations from cuisines of the Mediterranean, Asia, and Latin America. Multiple studies are confirming the health benefits of these international cuisines to protect you against lifestyle-related diseases, mostly by reducing risk factors against obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even certain cancers. For instance, an 8-year study that followed 20,000 Greek men and women found compelling evidence for the Mediterranean diet to help you live a longer and healthier life. These exciting studies are also supported with studies that show that how you eat can really impact your health. So eating mindfully, taking the time to savor, maybe even enjoy your meal with a glass of wine is critical to your health. So emphasize wholesome meals that are seasonal, also sustainable. These are all important keys to a healthier lifestyle. So that's why the emphasis is really to create foods that are so good that you want to savor them. So let's take a look at your first step in creating a healthy plate. The Sonoma Smart Plate is one of your easiest strategies to healthy eating. It helps you to keep tabs on the right amount of foods, not too much, not too little, but also the smartest combinations to help you look and feel your best. We remember that first shot of that really large hamburger that actually filled the plate to the rims. Think about this. If you have a larger plate, there's just more room to put more food on there. So selecting the size of the plate is critical. This plate happens to be too large, but But a 9-inch plate, which is within the diameter of this plate, gives you the right guideline for keeping the right portions as a first start. The Sonoma Smart Plate, also known as Your Healthy Plate or very similar to the USDA My Plate, is really an important guide for not only the right portions, but the smartest combinations to help you look and feel your best. Here's what I like to recommend. Make your 9-inch plate half with 50% colorful fruits and vegetables, 30% lean proteins like lean beef or poultry or fish, and 20% whole grains. Emphasizing these combinations really helps to make it second nature to eating healthy. So let's take a look at what this would really look like with colorful, delicious food. Let's take a look at the inspiration of a Sonoma Smart Plate for one of my favorite recipes. Grilled shrimp, which is about 30% of the plate, a wholesome toasted quinoa, which has a delicious nutty flavor at about 20% of the plate, and then you'll notice 50% of the plate are these beautiful, colorful greens that are dressed with a citrus vinaigrette. Now keep in mind that color is also an important guideline because the more color you have on the plate, the more healthful properties you're going to get from your foods. So the guideline is to have the smartest combinations of foods to help you make you look and feel your best, but also keep in mind that the Sonoma Smart Plate is really also about the size. Here is the same delicious, very healthy meal, but it's actually served on a larger plate. And we all tend to know what happens on a larger plate. We put more food on. So even though these are great, healthful combinations of food, the end result is probably too many calories and more than what you would probably want to eat. The Sonoma Smart Plate is really making healthy eating second nature. It's not about micromanaging how much food you eat, the calories, the points, the grams. It's really being more mindful about the combinations and the amounts of foods that you're going to include. It also helps you to shift your focus to what we know is the healthiest way to eat, shifting your focus to a more plant-based. That's why we have 50 to 75% of our plate based on grains and colorful fruits and vegetables. Another component that I really like about the Sonoma Smart Plate is this mindfulness, or being aware of what you're eating, how you're eating, and how much. Studies actually show that mindfulness is really important to health, and learning when to stop eating or when you feel full or satisfied is critical. So, next time you're having a meal, pay attention to when you feel 80% satisfied or 80% full and learn to say, that's enough. So it's interesting to take into account all of these components that make healthy eating so easy and actually second nature. So Chef Bill, let's take a look at some really delicious ideas that help translate the science into some delicious meals.
I'll do what I can. Let me show you what I've got here already. I've got 2 plates. This is our fish dinner. Now, the first is fried fish, French fries, and almost as an afterthought, just a little bit of coleslaw with a really rich mayonnaise dressing. It is fish, and there's a lot of vegetables on this plate, but I don't think it's really representative of great nutritional choices. So we'll recommit to doing the right thing. And here's the better plate. I've got plain boiled white rice, I've got steamed broccoli with nothing on it, and I've got a little piece of white fish that's been sautéed, but no rich sauce. Newsflash, when food does not taste good and it doesn't get eaten, it doesn't matter how healthy it is. If it's not eaten, it's not food. This is nutritional garbage. So I'm going to take both of these plates and we'll set them aside. And we'll see if we can find a middle ground. We'll see if we can find something that looks good, that's appealing, that tastes good, and then at the end of the day, and just keep this to ourselves, it's also healthy. Shh. What I'd like to start with is to make a brown rice pilaf. Now, I've got a pan on the heat already, and into that pan I'm going to put some onions. And it doesn't take very long for onions cut up this small to turn translucent. That's all that I want to happen. While those are cooking, I'm going to throw in a branch of thyme. I'm going to throw in a bay leaf, and I'm going to throw in a couple of cloves of garlic. Now, this rice pilaf that I'm making takes about 45 minutes to cook. One of the downsides of whole grains is that for the most part they take longer to cook. So that white rice that we just saw cooked in 15 minutes, and this took 45. Once it's started, you can turn the heat down, put the lid on, and you can go take a shower. There's one possibility. But when I cook a brown rice pilaf, I think to myself, I could repurpose that. I could use it not once tonight for dinner, but I could use it tomorrow as fried rice. And the day after that, it could be part of a filling for an omelet. It could make its way into a salad. It could become a grain medley. So it holds pretty well, especially in the freezer. I would suggest that you actually make more than you need for this one meal. Cook it once, eat it 2 or 3 times. All right, the next step is to take a measured amount of brown rice. And this is medium grain brown rice. The bran layer is intact. The germ is intact. This is exactly the way it comes from the plant. And I'm going to add that into the pan. Now, what I want to do is coat all of the grains with that flavorful fat that's in the pan. And I'm not just going to coat the grains with fat. I'm also going to cook them a little bit. And the cooking will actually gelatinize the starch on the outside of the grain. So each grain gets an oily little jacket to wear. Each grain gets a little coat of gelatinized starch. And both of those things will keep this so that it cooks up fluffy and loose and doesn't get clumpy. What you'll notice is that the rice will initially start to turn white as it cooks, and then you may see a little bit of golden color beginning to take hold. You'll probably also notice a little nutty aroma coming off this pan. All of those are great signs. While this is cooking, I'm going to season it with salt. I'm also going to season it with a little bit of pepper. And I'll tell you that every grain that you cook demands a specific quantity of liquid. So when you make a brown rice pilaf, brown rice likes to cook in 2.5 times as much liquid as rice. So I'm going to measure the liquid into here. And we'll bring this up to a boil. Now, you saw that I seasoned this already with salt. But you ask yourself, really, how much salt do you need? Well, I always say that the water that rice cooks in should actually taste like soup, like a properly seasoned soup. So I'm going to add a little bit more salt. Pepper, I think we're fine on, maybe just another pinch. And we'll bring this up to a boil. While that comes up, I'm going to start another pan here. And in goes some oil. I'm using olive oil. And I'm going to add onions. And once that's cooking, let me tell you exactly what this is going to be. I'm going to make a really versatile sauce. A wonderful sauce that we can put tonight on some salmon. It would taste equally at home on tuna. I might even put it with a chicken breast off the grill. It takes its inspiration from Sicily and the flavors of Sicily. So it's tomatoes and capers, it's garlic, it's olive oil. And it begins in exactly the same way. We sweat onions until they're tender and they're translucent. Now that the onions are translucent, I'm going to add some garlic. We want to be careful not to burn garlic because as it browns, it very, very quickly turns bitter. I've often been taught and have told other people the same thing, that when garlic becomes aromatic, that's all the cooking it needs. When you can smell it, that's it. We'll give it a little longer than that, but if you look at this pan, you'll notice that the onions and the garlic both, neither of them are browning. This rice pilaf is just coming to a boil right now. And once it comes to a boil, you want to turn the heat down to a simmer. You want to maintain a bare simmer in that pan, cover it with a tight-fitting lid, and then keep it over a low heat so that it simmers gently for about 40 minutes. The other rule of thumb I would share is that all of the liquid that is in there should have been absorbed by the rice. So take a look. We'll put a lid on, and we'll maintain it at a simmer. But what I have right here is a rice pilaf that I made a little bit earlier. You can see that the bay leaves and the thyme branches have just floated to the top. I can take those out. If I were to tip it over, no water would pour out. And you'll see the top begins to look a little pockmarked. Now, once it's cooked, it's a good idea to let it rest for just a while. As soon as grains have finished cooking, they can be tender. So I usually let it sit for 10, 15 minutes, something like this. And then you can go back in and fluff the rice up. And because of the pilaf method, it fluffs up very light. It doesn't stick together. All right, set that aside. Back to our sauce. The garlic, the onions are cooked enough at this point. I'm going to deglaze this pan with some white wine. This is a sauvignon blanc, which has got a nice acidic backbone. And we'll turn the heat up and let that reduce nearly dry. All right, this is come down by about half. I'm going to add the tomatoes. And because these are canned, they've been cooked a little bit already. I'm going to flavor this sauce with some capers, and I have them right here, and so I'll drag those into the sauce. In Sicily, a big pinch of pepper flakes might be appropriate. Don't overdo it. And then finally, I'm going to add some olives. These are just green olives that have been quartered and pitted. Olives go in. A bay leaf. And that's it. This sauce is almost done. I just need to simmer it so the flavors can mingle together. The flavors of the olives, the flavor of the capers with the flavor of the tomatoes. But what I would do is turn the heat down and just let it simmer probably for about 5 minutes. To finish this sauce, I've got some herbs. I've got mint and I have basil. And both of these herbs hate to be chopped in a careless way. If you chop them in a careless way, oftentimes they will turn black, and that's not good for anyone. So in both cases, I'm going to take these herbs and stack them up into a little pile of leaves that I can roll up and slice. Let me just grab a knife quickly. This is the least invasive way of chopping these herbs. It's called a chiffonade, and a chiffonade guarantees that this doesn't turn black. So there's some basil. I'll do the same with mint leaves. Stack them up. and roll them up. And again, cut them into thin ribbons. Now, I think of this as a rustic dish, so I'm not being overly careful. I'm going to take these herbs, put them right into the sauce. And if you remember my admonition from before, make rice pilaf once, eat it 3 times. I would say the same is true of this sauce. I can make a larger batch. I could double this. And tonight we'll have it with salmon. We could have it with tuna. It would be great with chicken breast. I might even serve it with a poached egg as a part of a simple supper. But for our purposes tonight, I'm going to finish seasoning it. Be a little bit careful. Canned tomatoes have salt. Olives have salt. Capers have salt. And so I don't feel as though I need to add a tremendous amount of salt to this sauce. Neither do I need to add pepper, because if you'll recall, I put in here the pepper flakes earlier. What I am going to add is a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, and we'll let that enrich this sauce. And I've got 4 nice pieces of wild salmon. I will season those a little bit. And then I'm going to take them and just lay them into this hot sauce. Nestle them right down in there. And they'll cook from the bottom, but also from the top, because I put a lid on it. So 2/3 of this meal are done. I made a really nice sauce, and I made enough so that I can repurpose it later on. This can be put into a yogurt container or a little Tupperware container and tucked in the fridge. I've got rice pilaf. We'll eat it tonight, certainly, but I can repurpose it. So I will take good care to package it and put it in the refrigerator. And then finally, we're going to make a vegetable accompaniment. And this couldn't be simpler. I've got great zucchini coming right out of the garden right now. And what I want to do with that zucchini is cut it into ribbons, just like this. Just take a peeler. Maybe you've got a mandolin, sort of a handy-dandy slicer-dicer that you could run this off on. But I'm going to cut it into thin ribbons. And we're going to call this dish zucchini carpaccio. Basically, I'm going to season this raw zucchini, and it will become a vegetable/salad, albeit a very healthy one, to go along with our salmon and our rice. So that's what it looks like with the vegetable peeler. If you wanted to use the mandolin, and I have one right here, I'll show you what that might look like. And this maybe goes a little bit quicker. Just be careful with your fingers, especially as you get down here towards the end. I even throw a little bit away just so that I don't leave some of my fingers in the salad. All right, so there is a bowl full of zucchini. I'm going to flavor that very, very simply with really good olive oil. I'm going to flavor it with lemon juice, salt. I'm going to put mint on there. And then finally, when we're all done, a little bit of Parmesan cheese. The same rule applies. I'm going to make a chiffonade of all this mint. And I want to be generous. I want this salad to have plenty of flavor, because if it doesn't, it will simply taste like raw zucchini. Okay, salt makes its way on here. And pepper. Some nice olive oil. And lemon. Now, let me scrape some of the seeds away. And that's probably not nearly enough. The nice thing about leaving 1 or 2 seeds in there is it convinces the world that you're using fresh lemons. And I think that speaks volumes about the quality of your cooking. All right, let's toss this together real briefly. We've got the rice, we've got our fish, we've got the salad. I think we are ready to put this together. So first, make sure this gets tossed. If you cut this zucchini a little bit thicker and it fights back a little bit, then simply stop and let it marinate for 5 minutes and it will soften up very nicely. But with the vegetable peeler, it comes out nice and thin and it kind of gives up right away. I like it to look like a little tangle. Set that aside. I can take a little bit of an indulgence ingredient like cheese and just use it, leverage it to make a lot of nutrient-dense food taste great. Next, our rice pilaf. And then finally, let's have a look here. And that's it. That took me about 15 minutes. Obviously, I had a little bit of work that I'd done ahead. But now that I've got the work done, and I've repurposed, or I can repurpose some of these things, our next meal will be simpler and easier for our efforts today. Think about making sure that you cook once, eat twice. What you see here is our best version. So we started with fried fish, we moved on to something that nobody would really want to eat, and now here's a dish that I think really screams flavor. See what you think. As you saw, that didn't take long to prepare. The recipes aren't that complicated, and the ingredients are easy to find. The real emphasis is on building a plate that's balanced for long-term health and for big flavor. In our next session, we're going to learn about whole grains. We're going to bust a few myths about carbohydrates, and we'll tackle a few more great recipes.